Hi everybody, Sam White here, founder at Shakespeare in Detroit. Thank you so much for clicking on this video here on Shakespeare in Detroit's YouTube channel. I'm so grateful that you decided to connect with us here on YouTube. I wanted to stop by our YouTube channel to chat with you all a little bit about Giving Tuesday. If you don't know what Giving Tuesday is, it is the largest day, the biggest day of philanthropy around the globe, where people choose their favorite nonprofit or mission or entity and they donate. They donate to that organization. And of course, people give all year round, and the end of year is usually a big fundraising time for nonprofits. But Giving Tuesday is the largest global day of giving. And Shakespeare in Detroit, of course, is participating in Giving Tuesday. We actually posted a video back in September about our goal for Shakespeare in Detroit. We want to raise $25,000 at Shakespeare in Detroit to support our 2024 season. And I hope that you'll give by visiting shakespeareindetroit.com. You can click on the link in the description and go directly to our donate page if you already know that you want to donate. But for those of you who want to know exactly why Giving Tuesday is such a big deal for Shakespeare in Detroit, I wanted to connect with you all via this video. Individual donations are critical to Shakespeare in Detroit's success long before, because Shakespeare in Detroit has not always applied for grants. In fact, we were specifically told, even in the beginning of our journey, that we had to have, a proven track record, which is fair, which is totally fair, by many grantors. Our proven track record, though, is very unique to many organizations, because Shakespeare in Detroit didn't just create a cadence of successful shows or work. Shakespeare in Detroit pioneered the first ever Shakespeare in the Park experience in Detroit proper, period. That experience, the experience of Shakespeare in the Park, which happens in every single major city that you can think of, not just in the States, but around the globe, everybody participates in it. It did not happen in Detroit proper until August of 2013, when Shakespeare in Detroit, 3.5 weeks after the city filed for bankruptcy, had the audacity to go to Grand Circus Park and make Shakespeare's Othello available to all by charging no ticket fee whatsoever. You just had to bring a chair or take up one of the chairs in the park, and everyone got to experience art at Grand Circus Park, theater at Grand Circus Park, 3.5 weeks after the city filed for bankruptcy. So Shakespeare in Detroit doesn't just have a proven track record, we have made history. And the significance of that period of time in Detroit, and having, again, the audacity, the audaciousness to say that this sort of work matters and that Detroit wants to have an experience that other cities have globally, is crucial. It's vital, because the DIA at that time was having a really rough time, which is where the Detroit millage comes from, of course, because Detroit was in such a state, a dire financial state, that essentially there was going to be a garage sale on some masterpieces from the DIA. We knew at Shakespeare in Detroit that it would all work out, and it has, of course, because we know that art matters. We understand that while businesses will bring people to Detroit, the arts will make them stay. And we knew that people would see the value of our illustrious, gorgeous museum. We love the DIA. They've been incredible partners to us. And of course, everything worked out. And we also knew that more art, performing art, the art of Shakespeare under the stars, was needed. And sure enough, 500 people came out to see that production of Othello. So we depended on, at that time, it was a conservancy, which is now known as Downtown Detroit Partnership. It wasn't known as that more than a decade ago. But that donation came from Dan Gilbert, essentially, that very first donation that we got. which was more of an individual donation than a foundational donation, because Mr. Gilbert was building up that part of town and recognized that the arts matter, and we're so grateful for that. So for a long time, Shakespeare in Detroit, we depended on business people, individuals, our community to support our work. That's our foundation, individuals. And now we do get grants, and we're so grateful for that. That's so needed. It has been essential. Grants have been essential to us, like every other nonprofit, to scale our work, to make our work more available, to do more of the work. And that's fabulous and wonderful. And we're so grateful for the grants that we get and the foundations that support us. But it all started with community members, business folks, the people in our neighborhoods, humans, the humans who make our city function. Those are the people who made our work possible and who continue to make our work possible. And the difference still then and now is that individual donations are unrestricted. When you get a grant, they come with many restrictions, and most of them are project-based. So for example, we get support for our Shakespeare STEAM program, which is a program, but it's not the operational elements of the work. Every nonprofit or for-profit, every business needs to have a place to work. Right now I'm sitting in Marygrove inside of the costume shop at Shakespeare in Detroit, where you've probably seen me in other videos. And then right next door, we have our office. We have to pay rent. We have subsidized rent, but we have to pay it nonetheless because we have to have a place to work. Shakespeare in Detroit, we do work in a hybrid form. Sometimes we work from home, but we can't build costumes at home. We've done that before. That's not sufficient or efficient. So we have to have a costume shop, and we have to have an office option as well. Again, it's subsidized, but individual donations help make that those fundamental elements like a place to work possible, because most grants will not pay for operational cost. The other thing that individual donations pay for is technology. We have to have the internet, we have to have a printer, we have to have printer paper, we have to have computers, we have to, use technology to be able to market our shows, to connect with each other, to get access to certain resources for research for our students, for our STEAM program. We have to have technology. And there's other operational things that most grants do not support. Now, you might, as a nonprofit, be able to get an operational grant, but a large number of grants only support specific projects. The other reason why individual donations are so vital to our work too is because Shakespeare in Detroit is operating towards a new model for theater. So I want to start by saying this is not a judgment, nor is it a critique. It's an observation. And there's a lot of proof, I know actually, that supports this observation. So Shakespeare in Detroit is a debt-free organization. Now, it would seem like that would be a good thing, but we live in a capitalistic society, which is fine. I think there can be a balance there. I believe that entrepreneurs should be able to make a living, right? I'm not just speaking of folks who found a nonprofit. I'm talking about for-profit entrepreneurs should be able to start a business and benefit from the revenue that they bring in, from the income that they bring in. It's different with a nonprofit, right? Nonprofits are tax exempt because we serve, we give, we support. Our work empowers, uplifts the community. Much different than a for-profit organization. Alas, the capitalistic sort of perspective still ends up impacting nonprofits. And here's what I mean. We're debt-free, which I still consider, our board considers, our team considers a plus. And a huge sort of proof point to that being a positive is that during the pandemic, we were not fretting nor fearing, nor were we in dire straits, because we have subsidized rent here at Mary Grove, so it's affordable. We don't have a large brick and mortar theater that needs, maintenance and people working inside of it, heating and cooling and all of that. We don't have a mortgage. Theaters that did have those things during the pandemic were already in debt because audience fluctuations have always been a reality in the American theater. And once audiences could not go to the theater, that deeply and in a long-term way impacted most nonprofits who have brick and mortar, who have debt. So again, we look at being debt-free as a positive. However, some foundations that give, some panels or committees, sometimes if they're reviewing Shakespeare in Detroit's financial status, think that or believe that or have the values, an old theater model, that debt is good, right? That you should have some debt because it means that you took a risk and invested so that you can scale. And while that is true to some degree, remember we work in Detroit and our work started 3.5 weeks after the largest municipality in the country filed for bankruptcy. And so we've always been modest and mindful and strategic about how we finance our work. Meaning, in layman's terms, we don't have what we don't use, and we don't spend more than we have. We work, we create, we build within our means. And so fast forward from the largest municipality, Detroit, filing for bankruptcy up until 2020, when the world stopped, because we were mindful, because we were strategic, because we were modest in our financial strategy, we didn't have any debt and we had very little worries during the pandemic. And we think, again, that being debt-free was a good strategy for a company in Detroit, and maybe any company, even those outside of Detroit. And so while some theaters may do their work based on an old theater model with debt from credit cards to loans, by the way, Shakespeare in Detroit, and all due respect to organizations who had to take out PPP loans, because everybody has their own journey, their own thing, and everybody has to do what they have to do. PPP loans were not something that was necessary for Shakespeare in Detroit, and so we did not take one. Again, remaining debt-free during the pandemic. In fact, we scaled during the pandemic because we got a large donation for our work with youth, our Shakespeare STEAM program. STEAM, if you don't know, stands for the science of lighting, the technology of sound design, the engineering of a form. For us, that's a costume, the art of classical performance, and the mathematics of set building. We have 3 programs at Shakespeare in Detroit. Our mission at Shakespeare in Detroit is to provide high quality theater for all, no matter your socioeconomic status. So we do that. We meet that mission of high quality theater, Shakespeare, and sometimes we do non-Shakespeare in many ways. So the first way that we meet that mission is through our professional programs, which usually includes a free program in the summer where citizens of Detroit, residents of Detroit, people from surrounding areas, anyone who wants to come can come into Detroit and see a free play or program by the theater company at no cost to them, because even though the city's demographics are ever evolving and the population is changing, Detroit still has a great population that lives in poverty. And so we want to make our work available to anyone who wants to see high quality work. So our first program is our professional main stage programming. Our second program is our Shakespeare STEAM program, as I just mentioned, which is the work that we do in schools side by side with educators for students in grades 3 through 12. And that program extends into the summer when we have our summer conservatory. So any teenagers, any high school students or 8th graders who really excelled in the in-classroom work that we do during the school year, they're able to come into conservatory work with us for 6 weeks and expand upon their vocational and artistic skills via our conservatory. And then they get a scholarship at the end of the summer. We've given away $35,000 to underserved youth in the last 3 years of the program. And then last but not least, we have our special events. Our special events include our inebriated readings, workshops that we have. A Christmas Carol is an example of a special event, which we have in just over 2 weeks. So those are the 3 programs. And we've been able, over the past decade of work that Shakespeare in Detroit has been serving the community, we've been able to do all of these things with no debt. And so for now, we're going to continue to operate in that financial vein of no debt, because audiences, again, these are data points that anyone can look up. You can use the Google machine and see why we believe our financial strategy makes more sense in Detroit and in the world today, especially since the city filed for bankruptcy, and even more so now that we're living in a post-pandemic world. Okay, so you can check stats and see that audiences have not returned as they once were in seats at theaters from Broadway and beyond. So your individual donation is so impactful, has helped us sustain our financial responsibility. It's critical. It's critical to our mission. Again, because grants are unpredictable, they're not always guaranteed, and they have several restrictions and limitations, and individual donations do not. And I'm just looking at my notes because I didn't want to forget to tell you all anything. The other thing is, businesses might bring people to Detroit, but the arts are going to make them stay. Who wants to stay in a town that does not have a rich cultural landscape? Not me. I know you don't either. So, people come here to work because there's so many businesses and new entities that are popping up in the city all the time. And our food offerings have grown exponentially. But there's other aspects of a rich cultural landscape, such as art, the performing arts. And so while businesses may bring people to Detroit, the arts will make them stay. And so by you giving individual donations to Shakespeare in Detroit, you help guarantee the quality of life here in Detroit for residents and those beyond, those who live in all of Southeast Michigan and beyond, because everybody wants to be able to come into Detroit's major city and enjoy high quality theater. Who doesn't? I know I don't. So very, very grateful to be able to see some awesome theater in Detroit. We're not the only cool theater in Detroit. There's many, but we are the only classical theater in Detroit proper. The only one. Some people qualify Detroit as surrounding areas, but we are in Detroit proper. You can look out this window right now and see Detroit. And we've always been in Detroit. Again, we pioneered Shakespeare in the city proper, available for all. Shakespeare under the stars, in the tradition of Shakespeare in the Park. We did that. Your individual donations also support or inspire large foundations and corporations to also donate, because when they see the community, not just me, the founder, not just our amazing managing director, Christine, or our actors or interns or designers, when they see that the community is invested in this work, it inspires them to go, you know what? The community has demanded that this work be here in Detroit, and we want to also empower Shakespeare in Detroit and donate as well. So again, 5 major ways that your individual donations support us. Unrestricted funds. You support the fundamental elements, right, of the work that we do. Unrestricted, you support fundamental elements like people, place, resources. Number 3, you support a new theater model that it uplifts building culture more than building buildings. Number 4, you also help to empower the city. People will come here for work or for business, but the arts will make them stay. And then lastly, number 5, you inspire larger organizations, larger foundations and grantors and corporations to give because they see that you, our community, are invested. And I also want to emphasize for you, friends, don't think, I don't have that much money to give, so I can't support. No, it all adds up. You might hear this all the time, but 4 caramel macchiatos, if you can sacrifice 4 caramel macchiatos this week, That's $20. That's around $20. And $20 pays for an hour of in-classroom training at our schools, our partner schools, Bog School, Clippert Academy, the school at Mary Grove. 1, 2, 3, 4 cups of coffee pays for an hour with students in Detroit. And I mean, and that's technically, right? That's priceless. That's priceless. They get to have our teaching artists in their rooms, totally free to the students, totally free to the school district, totally free to parents, because you sacrificed 4 caramel macchiatos at $20 this week. $50 pays for 2 hours of in-classroom training with Detroit youth, with students in our partner schools, plus a copy of No Fear Shakespeare or Good Tickle Brain, which are 2 books that we use as resources when we're teaching in schools. So every dollar counts. Every or any amount that you can donate this Giving Tuesday matters. If you have any additional questions about how your donation supports moving Shakespeare in Detroit forward, please do not hesitate to reach out to us directly at info@shakespeareindetroit.com. That's I as in ice, N as in Nancy, F as in Freddie, and O as in outdoors at shakespeareindetroit.com. And we will answer your question right away this Giving Tuesday. I thank you so much for stopping by Shakespeare in Detroit's YouTube channel. And I thank you in advance for your tax-deductible donation to Shakespeare in Detroit this Giving Tuesday. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we hope to see you at a show soon. Thank you for supporting our 2024 season. Talk to you later. Bye.